I'm just going to rewind for a second because what you said was just outrageous.
I think they could definitely finish second in their division.
You're hung up on that team.
I am. There's something about them this year.
But the rumours at the minute are Kirk Cousins could be on his way to LA.
Wow, really?
Welcome back to the Early Hours podcast, where last time out we said that the Bengals would steamroll the Colts. We couldn't be more wrong. Guys, let's dive into that game straight away. Bengals 14, Colts 41. This was a performance without their new QB1 as well, Dan Jones, which we thought, well I thought at least, that he needed some preseason reps just to get assimilated into that sign, but the Colts could be cooking regardless.
Yeah, I thought they looked really good. They went for over 400 yards in total. The offense, the rookie RB room looks really good. It was, well, the main star was the fifth round draft pick Riley Leonard, 15 for 20 for 189 yards and one touchdown, which is crazy for, you know, the part of the game that he played. I think that just brings another dimension, really. It shows that probably Anthony Richardson doesn't need to be at the Colts, and Dan Jones still needs to look behind his shoulder. But even still, you know, the Bengals defense giving up 27 points in the first half. Are we going to see those issues again this year? And Joe Burrow's just, you know, whatever he does, they're going to struggle, aren't they?
Yeah, I just think it literally reiterates. They've picked up exactly where they left off. The only difference is that they've paid a ton of money to both receivers in T. Higgins and Chase. So it's going to be interesting because no matter what they do on offense, that defense and his O-line appears to just be dreadful. So, yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, well, throughout the entirety of our podcast, we keep saying, look, it's preseason. It's only preseason. We shouldn't be worried. The writing isn't on the wall yet. But should we be worried with the Commanders? They just lost 3-30 against the Ravens.
Well, it's that game in particular was a real standout, just on the basis that the Commanders have actually lost all three of their preseason games. The Ravens, on the flip side of that, won all three of theirs, and there was actually an interesting stat around that. Of the last 10 preseason undefeated teams, only 3 made the playoffs. So it's really interesting that this sort of cause for concern in Washington around the Commanders, and everyone's sort of praising the Ravens. But actually, could this be a bit of a sort of Houdini sign of actually things to come, and that the Ravens might have a tough year in the AFC North? Who knows? They're a very, very good side. And obviously, the preseason, certain teams are fielded, and it's not always the starters. So let's not overreact too soon. But yeah,
but I want to overreact. I'm a massive hype merchant. The bad omens are still there, especially for the Chiefs. My game to watch, obviously, Bears Chiefs. They beat the Chiefs 29-27.
Close.
Yeah, it is a close game, but that Bears side, they seem to be cooking on all cylinders in the preseason, and the Chiefs still look really, really ropey. Are they going to turn it around for the regular season? I don't know. And then the other game that I thought was particularly interesting is the Giants-Patriots, another 40-plus game over there. What are we looking at when it comes to the Giants, and are they on a roll? Are they on a roll like the Bears are?
I think so. I think the Giants have had a really, really positive pre-season. Dable looks happy. There was that picture of him smiling at Dart versus throwing a surface from previous years towards Dan Jones' direction. So he's happy by the looks of things. But yeah, another team that went 3-0 in the preseason. They, from a scoring perspective, were one of the highest scoring teams. I think they outplayed, what was the stat? They outplayed their opponents 107 points in total to 47. So actually that kind of has, you know, its benefits on both sides of the ball. It probably tells you that the defense have showed signs, that front four that they've invested heavily in, particularly Abdul Carter this draft just gone, being a top 10 pick, top 5 pick. And then on the other side of the ball, they can be really happy with how things have panned out in the quarterback room. And yeah, it looks really positive. Dart was flying again. We cannot leave that game. I'm sure Matt's probably going to come on to this, but Tommy DeVito.
Yeah, we've given a lot of time to talk about the Giants QB room. You know, Russell Wilson versus Jackson Dart with Jameis Winston waiting in the wings, and you know, will he be traded? Tommy DeVito 17 for 20 for 198 yards and 3 touchdowns is just wild. It's probably, well, I'm 99% sure it's the QB performance of the season, and it's his first real meaningful step. So, you know, is he now on the trade block for a QB2 gig somewhere? Why not? It looked really, really good.
But yeah, very, very, very positive to answer your question, Goody, overall for the Giants. And I think finally NY might actually have something, sort of some positivity and something to look forward to going into the season.
Yeah, there's been some real surprising performances across the board in pre-season, but we are finally out of those waters in just 2 weeks' time. Next Sunday we'll be back in full force. It'll be Red Zone, 7 hours of commercial-free football. We'll be back home and it will feel like it. But between now and then, the teams have got to finalise their 53-man roster. There's still trades and cuts happening across the board. Breaking news at the tail end of last week was Brian Robinson Jr. He's finally been announced at the 49ers. Smells, you must be happy with that trade?
Yeah, really pleased. I think it's been announced that he's going to be sort of RB2 going into the season with McCaffrey. We've got some really talented running backs in there, the younger guys, Isaac Guerrero, Jordan James, etc. But they're all just suffering with injuries at the moment. I think CMC is actually the only running back who's stayed fit this pre-season, which is pretty wild to say. But yeah, it's really good. The Commanders' general manager Adam Peters spent 6 years with us, really close with John Lynch. Obviously, got the Debo trade over the line early in the pre-season, so it's nice to use the contacts when they're there, isn't it?
It was definitely a test. I was thinking that, and I saw a lot reported on that as well. It was definitely a test of, and actually a reminder of how important relationships are in the sort of trading scene, the whole trading market. So yeah, definitely interesting. Quick question from me: how do you think it impacts the sort of the CMC role? I know there was a couple of sort of panickers on the fantasy front.
I was going to say, I hope it doesn't impact him too much else.
Yeah, well, just interesting because I don't think he was set to be a 3-down back anyway, was he, this year, CMC? Let's be honest. I think he's probably going to have limited snap share compared to other years with recent injuries. But just, from a Niners take, how does it look?
I think it depends. If we need points on the board, I think it's really hard to take McCaffrey out of the game. In an ideal world, when we're winning, you take him out, you protect him a little bit. And in our mind, it was going to be Isaac Guerrero, who's looked really good last year. But just for the injuries, I think Brian Robinson Jr. is a little bit safer, or another safer option to put behind CMC just to share the load. Don't think it necessarily changes McCaffrey's workload too much. It just complements it. But yeah, in an ideal world, CMC isn't a 3-down back for us this year. But if you need the points, then he's probably he's probably the most important guy to be out there, if I'm honest.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with depth, is there at all? But I think we all agree that CMC will probably take that primary role, especially if he can stay fit.
And on that depth piece as well, look, we're all desperate to get away from pre-season conversations. So
I think you more than most. You've been the one constantly rattling on about it.
I love it. So, but no, just on that piece around depth, I was just going to mention, just from a franchise view, I think what the real key takeaways of pre-season and what we'll come on to with the whole trade and cut conversation in a second is that the pre-season, whilst it's not necessarily about scores and about starters, and yes, there is elements of getting people up to speed, it's really about finding those 2 to 3 pieces here or there. It can be a running back, it can be someone in the defense, it can be someone on O-line, it can be anywhere. It's just about finding those pieces of resource that, when you are down the stretch, or you're making a late playoff run, or a team that perhaps was on the fringe of playoffs can sneak in. That's where they become really important. So we've spoke about this previously. It's about building that 53-man roster, obviously, but actually it's helping find those 1 or 2 players that can really sort of help your campaign.
Yeah. Well, speaking of like those 1 or 2 players, is there any unexpected moves that anyone's been keeping their ear close to the trade block in terms of maybe wide receivers or running backs? Do you think there's any more movement before the start of week 1?
I'll start with wide receiver if you like. Something that I'm quite interested in is Adam Thielen. He's with the Panthers. The Panthers are certainly not in a win now situation. Poor old Chuba Hubbard. So I think they're looking to shift him on. And the team that I've heard, which is really interesting, is the Vikings, with Addison being suspended. Yep. Just to fill in while Addison's suspended. If he misses a couple of games and maybe he's not fully match fit. And again, it adds the depth. Obviously, Jefferson and Addison are the top 2 guys there, possibly the best 1 or 2 wide receivers in the league. I think Thielen would be a good backup with a load of experience. And
it's familiar ground. He's played there for a number of years as well. I know. Thielen was definitely one that was being sort of touted. I think weirdly, him and Hunter Renfrow, both Panthers at the moment, very interesting sort of from a cap casualty perspective, from an opportunity to just get them off the board. If you look at the wide receiver room with the Panthers now, they've obviously taken McMillan this year. They've got Leggett from last year. They're actually probably in a position to shift one of those players. So yeah, I think we'll definitely see one of those sort of solid veteran slot options move.
I'm just going to rewind for a second because what you said was just outrageous. You think Justin Jefferson and Addison are a better 1-2 combination for the wide receiver room than Higgins and Jamar Chase?
I think I'm not saying they're better, but they're up there. It's top 3, isn't it?
That's
a conversation for another day.
That is outrageous.
I think just to weigh in on that point, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, and also let's not forget the newly sort of, the new relationship over in Dallas, George Pickens and CD Lamb.
Yep.
They are two really strong duos to compete with that Addison Jefferson argument.
I can't catch my breath,
claim.
but look, that is a topic for another episode, like you say. So going back to potential moves and trades, not particularly focusing on the players, but more of the teams. Which playoff contender do you reckon are just 1 or 2 components away from going to the Super Bowl this season?
Well, I've got one quicker that ties into that. I know we mentioned it last week with the Rams. There's a rumour going around at the moment, which is very interesting, obviously, with Stafford's potential back flaring up and his injury. I'm hearing that's a concern with Stetson Bennett and Jimmy G, which I'm sure will come on to Stetson Bennett. I think he's done really well. But the rumours at the minute are Kirk Cousins could be on his way to LA in a backup role. Yeah. I know. Just again, it could be for the stretch if Stafford goes down. But he's probably a good quarterback to trust going into the playoffs.
Well, we know that Rams team, that Rams side is Super Bowl worthy, and that they won it not so long ago as well. So that's a great shout actually.
Another one as well. I think Cowboys. Honestly, I do. I think Dallas.
You're hung up on that team.
I am. There's something about them this year. Dak Prescott, when he's fit, when he's fighting, him and CeeDee Lamb are on another level. And I just think bringing in Pickens opens so many doors for CeeDee Lamb to go on those more, deeper routes and really stretch the field. But if they can find a solid running back, if they can trade for someone, it's a shame that they've not maybe gone in for Brian Robinson. But
they should have paid the world for Brian Robinson.
Yeah,
they should have paid.
Really
money's tight over there, isn't it, at the moment?
I think they're close, and I honestly think if we see some regression from the Eagles and the Commanders, 2 teams that you could argue we could see really, substantial regression from. Obviously, Jaden Daniels has to have a big sophomore year. That's a lot of pressure there. The losing players, they've got problems going on with Terry McLaurin at the minute. And then the Eagles, if the Madden curse gets him and he goes down, it's a whole different kettle of fish for them. You just never know. The Cowboys could be back in that sense. I think they could go on a deep run. I think they could definitely finish second in their division.
That's a bold claim for a team that can't get basically past the wildcard stage in the playoffs. But we'll see. But like you say, yeah, they have got their own issues going on, both in just in the locker room and financially. Just quickly touch upon playing devil's advocate here. Micah Parsons, he showed up to his game at the weekend with some cheesy nachos. Now is that an omen here for a potential move to the Packers? Look, we'll take him. If he's coming, he's got some good relations at the Packers as well. But like we say, I think it's been drawn out long enough, and I think it's just in the meeting rooms that no one can get their ears in. I think it's going to be finalised before week 1. Moving on then. So obviously pre-season's fully wrapped now. We've got a tiny break until the regular season starts. Just in your opinion, who had the most successful pre-season? This could be overall franchises and teams or individual players. I'll just quickly get mine off the back, and it pains me to say it. My standout from the preseason is the Chicago Bears, right? 2 wins, 1 draw. They're undefeated. They have looked genuinely really alarming, and this is coming from someone who follows a team in the NFC North. I don't know what sort of pep talk and what sort of Weetabix they've been having in the preseason, but Jesus, I'm actually quite alarmed with this side. And again, it's preseason. We know it's preseason, but the stats don't lie when it comes to 2 wins, 1 draw, undefeated.
It's funny because I think you've gone from probably one of the most cemented divisions last year in terms of, and when I say cemented, I mean one of the toughest divisions in both. It's funny, both North divisions across each conference were arguably fighting for the toughest division last year. There's so much uncertainty in the NFC North now. The Vikings, for example, with McCarthy, no one really knows how that's going to pan out yet. The Bears, Ben Johnson, has made the move over. On that point, the Lions are sort of depleted from a coaching staff perspective, looking, potentially limited in their sort of scheme. The Packers, wide receivers are still dropping balls. Is Jordan Love injured? It's all a bit of a mess. But yeah, what's scary about that is the Bears seem to be out of all of that.
They've got it all together, haven't they? They've got all their stuff together, and they're consistent, which is the alarming point. I think. Sorry, before jumping in,
that O line is been so heavily invested in. If he's got any chance of surviving, although there was a terrible clip of him standing in the pocket with his O line doing absolute wonders, and he still managed to take a sack. But yeah, they look like the ones that could really, really sort of take a real step forward, and now seems to be the time to do it with what I just mentioned. So very interesting. Smales, any of your sort of top picks from over the preseason period?
I mean, obviously we can look at the 3-0 teams. I know you've already mentioned the Ravens. The Broncos, for me, look really good. Obviously, they played the 49ers in preseason, our first game, and they look really good. Their defence is solid. Bo Nix has got off to a good start for the most part. I think they've added some really good additions in the off-season as well, which is interesting to see. But also, again, it goes back to your little stat nugget of, only 3 of the 10 have made the playoffs with the Browns going 3-0.
Crazy, huh?
Again, so much QB talk with them. After all that, they've put Joe Flacco under centre for week 1, which is amazing. So it's just interesting to see how they go. They've probably had to field a slightly stronger team than other teams because they're trying to work out who their QB1's going to be. But I think those 2 teams look really good. But then quickly on the flip side, you've got to look at the 0-3 teams, the Panthers. They're going to be battling the Saints for the wooden spoon, I think, this year. And then obviously the Chiefs. Yeah, there's still time to get Anthony Richardson, don't worry.
Very true.
So, and Chiefs fans 0-3, I think there's a good argument that they looked the better of the 2 sides when they had more of the stars playing against the Bears. But it's still 0-3, and you've got to question the depth that we've just mentioned. So, there's concern on that side of the board as well.
Yeah, is that dynasty over at the Chiefs? Is Andy Reid just? They've been littered with injuries. It's not helped their campaign. And obviously, they choose who they field in pre-season. But for a team that got to the Super Bowl last season, they crashed out, and you've got to bounce back.
Yeah, and it's a tough division. Make no mistake, it is a tough division. The Broncos under Sean Payton, sophomore year for Bo Nix, they look really good. I think they've recruited, obviously they've taken RJ Harvey at running back. They've added a few pieces across the board. Mims Jr. looked like he had a good end to the year as wide receiver 2 behind Sutton. They're actually, and I don't want to jinx anything is what I'm trying to say, for the Broncos fans, but actually they're quite injury-free at the moment as well. And then the Raiders have been a bit of an easy team to sort of bulldoze over. They've generally been for the Chiefs 2 wins for the last couple of seasons, but they look to have strengthened as well. They've brought Pete Carroll in. Could that be an opportunity for, even if they just nick one of those wins back, all of a sudden the Chiefs aren't having these 14, 15-0 seasons and getting top seed positions. All of a sudden they might be fighting for sort of 3rd seed, 4th seed. And all of a sudden, then it's a much harder run than what they've had the last few recent years.
We've spoken about Ben Johnson a lot at the Bears, and I think I think we can all agree he's done a pretty good job, even if it is just in preseason. Is there any other coaching staff that may have either changed their location or implemented a new playbook that have really spurred on a resurgence in a side?
I think the big one for me, time will tell, because it's only been pre-season. It has been up and down in pre-season. I'm not claiming that it's been a smooth ride so far. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, if anything. But I think in terms of a massive culture shift and a massive sort of overhaul, Aaron Glenn for the Jets, I think that's a really interesting one. And actually, he's going to be fighting a new head coach in the Patriots of Vrabel as well. So they're going to probably be fighting for that 3rd spot in in their division. So that's going to be a massive step for them potentially to get off that bottom spot in their division and take third off the Patriots. And that'll be an interesting one. But yeah, Justin Fields, obviously they've brought in, that's a massive change under centre. Big year for Breece Hall. They've extended Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner. So very interesting. Comes in with a defensive mind, comes in with, trying to get the best out of that defense that Robert Saleh got in year one. So that'll be one to watch. That's my pick.
I think for me, I've got not his first year, but second year of Jim Harbaugh in LA with the Chargers. That's something that I'm interested in. Obviously, we've just played them this week and edged the win, but it means nothing if we're honest. Yeah, really interested to see how he does over there. I think he's been welcomed back into the NFL quite warmly. And yeah, I mean, he's got a couple of rings to win, hasn't he? So we'll see.
Well, no Monday Night Football tonight, sadly, but that means we are in full steam looking ahead to week 1 of the regular season. But don't worry, there will be another scheduled episode of the Early Hour podcast. You know where to find us. We'll catch you on Thursday.